I've made a lot of videos about how easy it is to misinterpret potential hints, and how, if you're not careful, potential hints can, and probably will, lead you down the wrong path. This is another one of those videos. But this one has a twist that some people are probably not going to like. I'm going to show two potential hints from The Thrill of the Chase that point to 9 Mile Hole. These will be the second and third potential hints that I'm showing regarding 9 Mile Hole. The first was in the olive jar video from a week or so back. I think these interpretations of the potential hints are pretty solid. I can visualize searchers discovering these and thinking that they had struck gold. And I can see those searchers never moving their search area from 9 Mile Hole because of these potential hints. And that's just with 3 interpretations of 3 potential hints. And these aren't hints that only seem obvious after the fact. These are potential hints that should have been evident to any serious searcher. Obviously, not all searchers would agree. I can't imagine all searchers agreeing on anything. But definitely more than several searchers would latch onto this and not let it go. Before anyone litters my comment section with hate, understand that my own solution, of which I am still certain, does not point to 9 Mile Hole. This video is not about 9 Mile Hole. This video is about interpreting hints and clues. As a bonus, even if these interpretations are incorrect, they still hold value. I'll show how they hold value a bit later. One of the ways I identified potential hints was through errors. Forrest said that he deliberately inserted errors into his books just to see if people would find them. So think about those errors for a minute. Forrest told people that he deliberately inserted errors into his books. Forrest told people that there were hints in his books. And Forrest encouraged people to search for those hints by looking for aberrations. Errors, by definition, are aberrations. Essentially, Forrest was telling people to look for errors and other aberrations in his books as a means to potentially find hints. Now, it would be kind of cruel to insert errors into a book when you knew that people would be painstakingly analyzing every word of that book, looking for errors that might be hints to a hidden treasure. I never got the chance to meet Forrest, but he did not strike me as a cruel person, not even a little bit. So I thought to myself, okay, this guy is giving instructions on how to find hints. Nice. And I proceeded as if any errors that Forrest had intentionally inserted into his books were put there as part of, or to point to, a hint. I would still have to decode the hints, which I suspected were mini puzzles of their own, but I knew how to find them, which meant that any errors I found received a lot of research time. Okay, with that in mind, there is at least one error within the Flywater chapter of The Thrill of the Chase. Within that chapter, there are 9 photographs. Each photograph contains fish. 6 of the photographs appear to be directly on the Madison River. 1 photograph is at Hebgen Lake, and 1 is at Watkins Creek, which is probably the same Watkins Creek that feeds into Hebgen Lake. As an aside to a different potential hint, 9 photographs, 9, each containing fish, going down a river, to a lake, and then up a creek. It wouldn't surprise me if more than one searcher scoured the Watkins Creek area looking for a bronze box. Anyway, one of the photographs The one on page 124 labeled "My Secret Fishing Hole" is at an unknown location. At least 7 and probably 8 of the photographs are connected via water. If Forrest's secret fishing hole is also on the Madison, then potentially all 9 of the photographs are connected via water. Okay, so what about that? None of that is unusual or surprising. That's where Forrest lived and played and worked for a good portion of his life. It's where he grew up. Those rivers were what the chapters In Love with Yellowstone and Flywater were all about. Forrest knew those waters so well that even after 70 years, he had no problem identifying where each photograph was taken. I mean, maybe the locations were written on the back of the photos, but I like to think that Forrest could just look at a photo and immediately know where he was looking. The error is with the photograph on page 122 labeled Mount Haines. In that photograph, Forrest's father is holding a fly rod in one hand and a net with a fish in the other. The error is that the Mount Haines photograph was obviously not taken at Mount Haines. There's nowhere to fish at Mount Haines. There's no water at Mount Haines. There is a hill in the background that some may say is Mount Haines, and that's why the picture is labeled as such. However, that hill does not look like Mount Haines to me, and I don't think it is. But to account for all possibilities, even if the hill is not Mount Haines, it is possible that Forrest thought it was Mount Haines when he labeled the photo for the book. I don't see Forrest making that mistake, but it is a possibility. So to be fair, this is really a potential intentional error rather than an intentional error. Intentional error or not, it did catch up in my brain as an aberration, and it caused me to look more closely. The first thing that popped out was that the Mount Haines photograph was directly above the 9 Mile Hole photograph. And if you look at a map, Mount Haines is directly above 9 Mile Hole. If you think it's directly below 9 Mile Hole, just flip your map over. The next thing that popped out was the outline surrounding the group of pictures on the facing pages 122 and 123. That outline looks like a building, and, I'm going to say it, it could be a house or a home. And that home is filled with what look to be trout. Since all the pictures on those pages are on the Madison or Hebgen, those are probably either brown or rainbow trout. Let's assume brown. So that outline that is filled with brown trout might even be called a home of brown. For those who want to be pedantic about this, I am not saying that the entire thing is the home of brown. Rather, it is a potential, subtle hint pointing toward a possible home of brown. It's a way of saying, hey, look over in this direction. You might find something worthwhile. I'll repeat the word subtle. The combination of the Mount Haines photograph plus the home of brown grouping of photographs was very interesting to me. Of the 9 photographs, the only one that I can give a precise location to is 9 Mile Hole, which, as I said, happens to be correctly positioned with regard to Mount Haines. And if you were to draw a line between 9 Mile Hole and Mount Haines, well, go draw that line. These 2 potential hints, both pointing to the same location, got my full attention. And it wasn't just the Mount Haines error and the outline of the home full of brown trout. It was also the olive jar interpretation. That's 3 potential hints, all pointing to one location. And that was something worth spending a little time investigating. For me, it always came back to the poem. Investigating, for me, meant trying to match the potential hints to the poem. Could I get the same result using just the poem? If I could not get the poem to take me there, then either the interpretation was incorrect or I was missing something. Now, I said earlier that these interpretations still held value even if they were incorrect. Personally, I think the combination of the interpretations for the Mount Haynes error, the home full of brown trout, and the olive jar are pretty persuasive. But what if those interpretations are incorrect? How do they hold value if they are incorrect? I have stronger interpretations of other potential hints that point to other locations, and I am not talking about my solution. I have multiple interpretations of multiple potential hints that point to multiple locations, all of which are as good as or better than the 9-mile hole potential hints presented here. The value in all of this was in realizing that not all of those interpretations can be correct. No matter how good they look, most of them are wrong. The value was in understanding that if I let the hints guide me, then I would end up lost. The most likely scenario was that I would fall for the first set of potential hints that came my way. Potential hints are like a riptide running from a beach out to the ocean. Once you get pulled into that riptide, the chance of making it back to shore is not good. And the longer you're in it, the worse your chances. The value was in making me question my own solution. If so many high-quality interpretations can be wrong, and most of them are wrong, then what makes me think that the potential hints that support my solution are right? The value was in getting me to take every interpretation I had of every potential hint and putting all of them into quarantine. They were all, every single one of them, hazardous to the goal of solving Forrest's poem. And solving Forrest's poem was my goal. I was never married to a solution, even my current solution. I was married to the goal of solving the poem, and the hints were roadblocks in the way of that goal. There are absolutely, no doubt about it, a lot of high-quality hints that point to 9-Mile Hole. And there are absolutely, no doubt about it, a lot of high-quality hints that point to a lot of other locations. So then, which set of hints is correct? The answer to that question is surprisingly simple. The correct set of hints to the poem is the set that the poem says is correct. Okay, how do you know what the poem is saying? By listening to the poem and only the poem. How can you hear what the poem is whispering to you when the hints are shouting in your ears? If you insist on playing the hint game, be careful. 9-Mile Hole has a pretty strong hint game going for it. I doubt many solutions can beat it on hints alone. For those still interested in solving the puzzle, though, if your goal is to solve the puzzle, I suggest playing a different game. A game that involves the poem, a map, and nothing else. And that's all I have to say about that.